Welcome to this Beyond the Podium, 6 weeks out from Election Day. Joining me today is Lou Gentile, former Ohio State Senator, a Democrat from Steubenville, and Lou currently works in Columbus, continuing in some political work. Lou, thanks for joining us today. I want to talk about the Senate race a little bit. I feel like it's picked up steam in the last few weeks. We have the incumbent Sherrod Brown and, of course, his challenger, Bernie Moreno. How do you think the strategy has been going in terms of advertising? I know just as a resident in Steubenville watching TV, I see a lot of advertising for both of these candidates right now.
Yeah, this will definitely be the most expensive U.S. Senate race in the country. And there's a lot at stake here, obviously, not only for Ohioans, but for the balance of power in Washington. And so you have incumbent state Senate or U.S. Senator, incumbent U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, who has done a really good job in his tenure as a state senator, as a U.S. Senator. And his challenger is a novice, Bernie Moreno. And you're going to see ad spending continue to ramp up. It's going to be a very costly elections. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Republicans and special interest groups understand that Sherrod Brown fights for working families. He stands up for Ohio families and workers. And, he's able to push back against corporations and some of their policies. And so they're going to spend a lot of money to try to defeat him.
And you mentioned Sherrod Brown and his work with union workers. Bernie Moreno has attempted to make a push as well for securing union support. Why do you think this has been such a monumental issue in this election and one that both candidates are kind of targeting?
Well, Sherrod Brown has a history and a record standing up for working families and for union workers. He has done a lot to protect and save the pensions of workers throughout the state and country. He's got a lot of support from union leadership and, throughout the union spectrum. You look at the building trades, you look at the industrial unions, the public sector unions, they all understand that whose side Sherrod Brown is on. And he's on the side of people who get up every day, go to work, make a living, and just want to take care of their families, educate their children. And that's whose side he's been on. And he makes no bones about it, whether it's standing up and passing legislation to protect pension benefits, whether it's for protecting health care and lowering the cost of prescription drugs for seniors and for those who need insulin. This is somebody who time and time again, Dylan, has been on the side of working class and middle class people in Ohio. And if you look at, every time we've needed him in Eastern Ohio, he helped fund a substantial amount of money for the hydrogen hubs in Appalachia. He's helped with the pensions of working people, securing their pensions. When we saw the collapse of Weirton Steel, he was there to help the workers and fight against trade policies. Numerous building trades unions are supporting Sherrod Brown. When there was a derailment in East Palestine, and we had a major incident there, Sherrod Brown was there right away and has been there ever since to stand up and fight against corporations who haven't focused on the well-being of the residents in the state. So he's somebody we know and can rely on. And I regret that his opponent has not been somebody with a great track record when it comes to workers or employees. In fact, a judge ruled that he had owed overtime payments. He withheld and stole overtime wages for his workers, and a judge ruled that he was wrong. And we see some untruths out of Bernie Moreno. The latest is that he's claimed he had an MBA degree and didn't from the University of Michigan. So this is about who you trust, who you can rely on, and who has had a track record, Senator Sherrod Brown, of really delivering for workers, for small businesses, for farmers all across the state of Ohio.
And as far as unions go, one of the largest ones that did come out, USA Today has an article within the last 48 hours. The Teamsters Union says it will not endorse either candidate. Probably going to be left up to local unions and what they prefer. Do you think this is a major hit to the Harris-Walz ticket?
I think it's interesting because the Teamsters in particular were a union whose pensions were saved. Pensions were saved by Biden and Harris and Sherrod Brown. So there are local unions that are coming forward and that are going to endorse the Harris-Walz ticket. Sherrod Brown has earned the endorsement of numerous unions from all over the state, as I had mentioned, from industrial unions to building trades unions to public sector unions. So what really matters, though, at the end of the day, Dylan, is not just every individual endorsement, but the connection that I believe Sherrod Brown has with the workers, the people that are members of those unions all across the state, that understand that he's fighting for better wages, safe working conditions, affordable health care, and that he'll continue to help grow jobs here in the state of Ohio. If you look at the CHIPS Act, if you look at what he's done in the Appalachian region with hydrogen funding, he has really delivered on infrastructure, on the semiconductor plant that's being built. This is something that Senator Sherrod Brown has individually been involved in and has delivered for Ohioans. And that's putting a lot of construction workers in those building trades unions to work. It's going to shore up the economy for decades to come. And again, Sherrod Brown, somebody that's on the side of middle class and working class people in this state. And I think that the voters understand that. And that's why every poll we've seen thus far, although it's close, every poll we've seen thus far has Senator Brown ahead.
Let's talk about the national race. Obviously, the race for president. The debate last week was interesting in several ways. One of the comments made by former President Trump about Haitian immigrants coming into Springfield, Ohio, putting Springfield kind of on the map in this election cycle. But also accusing folks there of eating cats and dogs. What do you make of the former president's comments and kind of just now this focus that's been made on Springfield, Ohio?
Yeah, it's been dangerous. And it's unprecedented that a sitting U.S. Senator from Ohio would thrust one of his own communities in the national spotlight and endanger his own constituents. There's been over 30-some bomb threats in that community. Governor DeWine, the mayor, the city manager, all went there to dispute these false claims that Trump and Vance leveled about immigrants eating dogs and cats. It's false. But I think the larger context here, Dylan, is this was a real effort to shift discussion away from the debate, which you just referenced, because in that debate, 70 million Americans saw that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are unfit for office, that they don't care about the American people, that they're only focused on themselves. It diverted attention away from the major issues. When asked about his health care plan, Donald Trump didn't have one. He wants to divert attention from his dangerous Project 2025 plan that would slash wages, would absolutely decimate things like Medicare and Social Security for our retirees. And so I think all of what's happening, this focus on this community, it's really deplorable that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance would engage in these lies. And quite frankly, they knew about it before they said it. A report came out most recently that said they knew that they were lying and still went ahead with it anyway. It's endangering people. It's wrong. And furthermore, these are legal citizens. And where's the accountability for the employers that are also bringing in a lot of workers from around the country? I mean, the employers have defended these workers, who are legal, by the way. But that issue, step aside from the chaos that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have created, which they have. And, you know, the Catholic bishops came out today, I thought was very strong. The Catholic bishops came out today and condemned what has happened in Springfield and condemned the rhetoric, the dangerous rhetoric of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. These two are unfit for office, but we want to get back and focus on the issues that matter in this race and hear more from Harris and Walz about what they're going to do, because they have a plan. They have a plan to help increase wages, to help continue to curtail inflation, to help invest in our economy and our community and lift people up and not tear people down. And I think that, unfortunately, Trump and Vance are trying to distract from their abysmal record and their negative rhetoric. And I've never seen a more hateful campaign, quite frankly. They have about offended and attacked. As somebody without children, I can tell you they've gone about out of their way, Trump and Vance, to just about attack everybody in this election. And he's not growing and expanding his electoral base. And I think that really is going to situate and put Harris and Walz in a really good position come November. But it's a fight. And as I think Vice President Harris rightfully says, the Democrats are the underdog in this race, and we got to continue to work until Election Day.
Well, let's talk a moment about the Harris-Walz campaign and how they've gone about things. Obviously, the late start for her after President Biden drops out. She names Tim Walz, gets him on board. From a policy perspective, a lot of Americans, some Ohioans, saying they need to see more from them. They are continuing to learn kind of as we go. Do you have one policy in particular or idea that they've come out with and rolled out that you're excited about?
Well, I think there's an emphasis that Vice President Harris talks about on small businesses and starting up small businesses and offering incentives and assistance through a tax credit to assist small businesses. I think that they understand small businesses are really the backbone of this country. And I think she recognizes that, along with her running mate who hails from a Midwestern state. So we've heard them talk a lot about this opportunity economy and what that means about lifting up the middle class. I think she's placed a particular emphasis on that with tax credits, child tax credits going to working families who are trying to deal with the high cost of childcare for their children while they go to work. These are real problems in the lives of everyday Americans. And I think she's speaking to those, from small business investments, to tax credits for working families with children, to continuing to rebuild and strengthen our infrastructure. And I think she's also understands, the need to reach out beyond just the core of the Democratic base, right? That she's tapped somebody from the Midwest who understands our rural and farming communities, that she's working with Governor Shapiro, who's a strong supporter of hers in Pennsylvania. So I think there's as you saw in the debate a few weeks ago, somebody in Vice President Harris who's talking to all of the country, who wants to represent all of the country, not just red states and blue states, but every American. And I think what we hear and see, the divisiveness, the hate, the lies coming out of the Trump-Vance campaign, it seems to me they only want to be a president and vice president for a very small few billionaires and people who are already doing pretty well, where I think Harris and Walz really want to help uplift the people in this country who actually built this country under the backbone of this country, the middle class.
Talking to Lou Gentile, former Ohio State Senator from Steubenville, now working in Columbus. Lou, I want to ask you before we go about a statewide issue, and that is issue 1. It's going to be on the ballot for Ohio voters. It introduces a new way for redistricting, puts it out of the hands of politicians and into the hands of everyday Ohioans who could get onto this commission. What are your thoughts? The language was finalized just this week for it. What do you like? What do you dislike about it?
Well, this is an important issue, Dylan, and we need substantial reform in how we draw our state legislative and our congressional districts. Having been a state senator, I worked on this issue in the state Senate, and I've watched over the years how this has really eroded public confidence and trust in our ability to make policies in the state. And so if we're able to achieve reform as it relates to gerrymandering, as it relates to redistricting, that will produce better policy outcomes. That will make members of the state legislature and members of Congress more responsive to their district and presently in the people in their district and the voters they represent. And the present system is broken. You have politicians who obviously are self-interested, who obviously want to keep power and expand power. You have them actually making decisions about what these districts look like. This new proposal will remove the politicians and people and influence peddlers out of the process. It will take them out of the process and institute an independent commission of people. Now, there will still be equal representation from the respective political parties, but this will remove the people who actually have a conflict of interest, the politicians, out of that process, and put in place a redistricting system that will help us make and create more competitive districts. The problem you have now is that, and we see this frankly on both sides to some extent, the problem you have now is these districts are drawn in a way that politicians, candidates cannot lose. which means they are not responsive to the entire constituency they represent. They're only responsive to one political party. And once they get past their primary, they forget about the voters. So the system that is being proposed, albeit there was an attempt and has been an attempt to derail some of the language to confuse voters, I think at the end of the day, voters will understand how important this issue 1 is. They'll vote to change the way we draw our districts now. They'll vote yes on issue 1, and they will deliver, I think, a strong message to politicians in Columbus and in Washington that voters, get to choose who their elected representatives are, and politicians aren't going to be allowed any longer to choose who they represent.
Lou, any other topics or races you want to touch on before we go today?
Just want to emphasize that I think you have a strong contrast here with Senator Sherrod Brown, U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, what he's done for workers, retirees, deliver jobs, economic development, affordable health insurance, what he's done for the PACT Act to stand up for and support our veterans who have been injured as a result of these burn pits. He has an amazing record. He has been somebody that's always been there for the people in the Ohio Valley and throughout the state of Ohio, and deserves re-election this November.
Lou, thank you so much for the time. I'm sure we'll chat again before Election Day.
Thank you.